I'm sure you probably have worked for a bad boss at some point in your life, right? Well, I think we all have. But bad bosses, it seems more and more, are the reasons that people are leaving their jobs. 75% of employees in a recent survey have either left a job or considered leaving because of a bad boss. Now, to talk about this a little bit more, leadership expert, rather, Elizabeth Muhasai is here. Elizabeth, welcome in. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Glad to be back, JT.
So, when people get into bad marriages and they think, oh, I love this person, but what about these characteristic traits that are not really good? Well, I'll marry him and I'll change him. Never really happens. Never really happens. So is that similar to a work relationship with a boss? Oh, they're a little rough. And I've heard stories about them, but I think I can get in there and work with them and maybe change their attitude. Really?
Well, I think if you go into it knowing that you are trying to change them, that's probably a poor reason to say yes to a job. But that's, and of course, my opinion. But I think it's possible for bad bosses to change. Oftentimes they're bad and they don't realize that something they're doing or saying or way they're engaging is why people are labeling them as a bad boss.
So if you're in a situation like that and you're listening right now and you're driving to work and your stomach's in knots because you got to see the boss in 15 minutes, what do you suggest employees do? I know somebody up the ladder might be able to manage down to that bad boss and say, listen, we've noticed a couple of things here, and they can get away with that. But can employees approach a bad boss and present, hey, listen, I just want to speak to you about something here? Or does that end up being, a bad mark on them?
Well, I know that there are a lot of variables in every office dynamic. I think if there is a decent working relationship between an employee that's listening and a boss that they would label as not the greatest, then I think it's worth, in a one-to-one situation, have a conversation to bring up the challenges that are at hand. And if not, then it's a matter of looking at, is there an HR option where they can seek guidance on what good next steps would be? But I think a lot of times most bosses are good people with blind spots that they're going to hear that and go, okay, I'm taking that into consideration and I'll see what I will choose to do about it. And so I think it is valuable for there at least to be a willingness to have the conversation with the boss. I think we don't do enough of that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And we talked about that when we talked about political conversations, right? That people tend to shy away from tough conversations, and we need to be finding our footing on having more of it so that we can work better together.
I was going to say, sometimes it can go the good direction and everything gets better and more productive for everybody. But Liz, what would you suggest to a boss that's trying to work right now who might have an inkling that, am I being a bad boss sometimes? Am I doing the right things with my people? How do they approach their staff to say, look, I need some honest feedback?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways for a boss who's open is provide a way for them to give feedback anonymously. They're going to be much more honest when they aren't fearing retribution or the boss may change their opinion of them. In coaching, we call it true you interviews, where it's a simple, a handful of questions that allow employees to give valuable feedback for leaders. And the number of leaders that have said, wow, I didn't realize that, or I had no idea they saw it that way. So something along those lines where they're giving a way for their employees to give them feedback is incredibly helpful.
Well, listen, folks, if you get, asked, we're going to do this anonymously, I want some feedback, and all of a sudden, they email you and you just, fill out this form, don't put your name on it, just email it back to me. Don't be duped. They're trying to trick you. And then, they backfire, So, all right, well, cool. I really appreciate the insight on that because a lot of people struggle with that every day, and it's anxiety city when people leave. So understand when people quit and big numbers bosses, the problem might not be them. It might be you. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Appreciate you.